To create this cloth tearing simulation, first make sure you have Blender 5.2 installed. Add a grid and subdivide it a few times in edit mode, then triangulate it. Open the Geometry Node editor and click on New. Add the new Cloth Dynamics node. Add empties at any point where you want to control the cloth. Then add a vertex near each empty to its own vertex group. Drag an empty into the node editor to create an object info node. Add a named attribute node for the vertex group and select the group close to that empty. Search for a typed bundle node, choose pin position, and then connect the nodes like this. Duplicate these nodes for as many empties as you have and then select the right empty and pin group in each. Search for a combine bundle node so you can connect everything and plug it into the effector's input. Now you can play the simulation and manipulate the cloth with the empties. Turn on tearing and set it to custom so that we can control where it tears. Create a vertex group to control where the cloth tears. And then plug that into the tearing input. Now when we pull on the cloth with the empties, it will rip apart. So now that we've seen it in 1 minute, let's look at setting up this system step by step. So I'm just going to get rid of this cube and I'm going to add a grid. Grid is just a plane which already has some subdivisions, and I'm going to subdivide this a couple of times, and I'm also going to triangulate it because, well, people say that triangulated cloth meshes look more realistic, so let's do it like that. Now typically what you would do is you would select the vertex, Ctrl H, hook to new object, and you add a vertex group, call it pin 1 and assign it, and we will just do that for each corner. So I have 4 vertex groups, 1 for each corner, and I'm gonna quickly rename these hooks because now they're just called like empty, and I want to call them hook 1 to 4. And renaming them will make it easier to use them in the geometry nodes setup later. So the way this would work with the old cloth modifier is we put the pin groups in the hook modifiers that were added when we pressed Ctrl H. And let me just collapse these to make some space, and then we would add a cloth modifier. So not the new one, but the old one. And let me just open a timeline. And let's go to the beginning. And so it falls down. And that's because when you use the old-fashioned cloth modifier, you need to add those vertices from the various pin groups to one big pin group as well. And you need to add that in the cloth modifier. So here under shape, we need to add the pin group, which combines all those 4 vertices. And then we get this, and then we can manipulate the cloth in real time. So that's great. Let's have a look at how we would do this with geometry nodes instead. So I will open a geometry nodes editor. And the first thing we'll do, of course, is we'll remove this cloth modifier. So I'm just going to click on this X here to remove it. And I'm actually going to remove those hook modifiers as well. So I have no modifiers at the moment. I'm just going to click on New here, and that adds a geometry node modifier. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add the experimental cloth geometry nodes node. And if we play it now, it will just fall down because it's not connected to those hooks yet. And so we need to add those hooks to the geometry node setup. And we can do that with a object info node, but of course the easiest way to do that is to just drag these guys in. Actually, let me just use this one for now. And then we also need a named attribute node. And this is for the pin. So I'm just going to select pin 1 for hook 1. And then we need to combine these two. And there's a couple of new combine nodes. And we can use a combine node, so let's search. But we have this combine bundle node, but it doesn't really have the inputs that we need. Instead, what we're going to do is use a typed bundle. Okay, and then we're going to click here and we are going to select or search for pin position. And now we have what we need. And so from the object info, I'm going to take the location and I'm going to plug it into the position here. And then for the named attribute, I'm going to take this and I'm going to plug it into the selection. I guess I should probably switch them around. It's a bit cleaner in terms of the nodes. So the pin group goes into the selection and the hook location goes into the position. And I'm just going to duplicate this a few times. Let me just put this here. Maybe I'll just move this out of the way. So I'm just going to duplicate this 4 times because we have 4 pins. And I'm just going to add the correct pins and hooks to these. There you go. And now all we need to do is combine these, and then we can do that with the combine bundle node. So we just drag these in. So now we have the 4 hooks and their pin groups, and we are going to plug them into the effectors here. Let me just open this. So we're going to plug this into the effectors. And so now let's go to the beginning of the timeline. And now, as you can see, we can move this around. It's very important, though, that you have removed those alt hook modifiers. Otherwise, this won't work. So yeah, now we can manipulate this in real time. And if you want, you can change the stretchiness. As you can see, whoa, that's very stretchy. And the bendiness. And that's also fun to play with. Maybe we will just use a very small value for both of these. I'm just going to set this to shade smooth. And if that doesn't work, what you can always do is you can add a shade smooth node. Just plug it in there, and now we have our smooth cloth. And I'm just going to add some nice matte cap to that, just to make it a bit more visual. Now, what I would like to do is I would like to tear this in half. So let me just move this back here. And so what we need to do is, well, we just need to enable tearing, simple as that. And yeah, tearing has a specific threshold, but let's just see what happens if we just take these two and we scale them away from each other on the x-axis. And so what happened is it got torn there where the hook is connected to the cloth, which makes sense because that's where most of the stress would be. But I would like to kind of tear it in the middle here. So to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make sure everything is unselected in edit mode. And then just with the circle select, I've selected these. And I'm going to add that to another group. And by the way, we don't need this pin group anymore. That was only for the old-fashioned cloth modifier. So I'm just going to call this the tearing group, and I'm going to assign that. And then we're going to just plug that in with a named attribute, or I can just duplicate one of these and select the tearing group, and then we are going to have to set it to custom, because now it's set to all, which means that all vertices or all edges can tear. And let's set it to custom. So the tool info says all edges in a custom edge selection can tear. So I'm just going to plug that into the edge group there. That could be that we have to make a new attribute here and select some edges instead of vertices and set that attribute. But I think it probably works. Let's see. So let's play it and let's scale these away from each other. And at some point it should start tearing. Yes, there you go. So I'm not really sure yet how to avoid having all those tiny triangles. Let me just reset that. But this is already getting closer to what I want. So let me just full screen this so you can see the full node setup. So it's pretty simple, just the new cloth node and basically this is all you need. These are just extra hooks. But if you just want to use one hook or experiment with having one hook, you can just use this. So you just need a named attribute for the vertex group, the object info node for the hook, which you can just drag and drop from the outliner, a type. So let me just show that again. So you search for type, and then you have a typed bundle, and then you search for the pin position, and then you get this node. Connect them like this, and then you can, if you have more hooks, you can combine them with a normal combine bundle node, which you can search for like this. And those just all plug into the effectors. And if you want to have a custom tearing group, then you just need another vertex group for that. And you need to turn on tearing. And that's pretty much it. You can also change the threshold for the tearing. So let's see what that does if we try that. Then it just takes more force to tear this apart. Maybe a bit too much force. Let me just try that with a more reasonable value, like 2. And then it will tear apart. So it seems that really that default value of 1.2 is the best one. So yeah, if you have any suggestions on how to make this work even better, please let me know in the comments. I'm not an expert on geometry nodes, so I am happy to learn. And thanks for watching all the way to the end.